Good evening, class. It's Mrs. Albright. Tonight we are working on Module 5, Lesson number 24, and our objective for this evening is to decompose fractions greater than 1 to express them as a mixed number. Now, we've had some experience with this because we've had to decompose fractions in order to add and subtract them, and so this is really going to take a look at how to convert them into mixed numbers very specifically. So the first fraction we're going to start out with is 7/3. So to decompose this, I can use a number line, and I want to think about what fractional unit I'm working with, and my fractional unit is thirds, and I have 7 of those. So on my number line, I'm just going to put marks and count by thirds until I get up to 7/3. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3. That's where 7/3 is on the number line. Now I want to think about how many thirds are in one whole. So in order to get one whole, I need 3 thirds. So I'm going to hop over 1, 2, 3 thirds. That would be one whole. I can make another group of 3. That would be 6 thirds or 2 whole. And then I think about how many I have left. So here I have 1 whole, I have another whole, and then I have 1/3 left. So to write this as a mixed number, I would write that I have 2 wholes and 1/3. I'll demonstrate this again with 13/5. Again, the first thing to think about is what fractional unit am I working with, and that's fifths, and I have 13 of them. So on my number line, I'm going to count up to 13/5. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13/5. And now I want to think about, well, how many fifths are in one whole? And the answer is 5. So I want to find my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's one whole. And then I'm going to do 5 more again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 2 whole. And then I'm going to count up to see how many are left. So you can see here I have 1 whole, and then I have 3/5 extra. So to write this as a mixed number, I have 2 wholes and 3/5. Now I want you to try this with 17/4. In the quiz, please write your answer as a mixed number. When you are writing it, write the whole number, then a space, and then write the numerator/denominator. All right, so for this fraction, we want to think about how can we use multiplication to help us convert these into mixed numbers instead of drawing the number line. So I'm going back to that original fraction, 7/3, and I'm going to ask myself, how many groups of 3/3 are in 7/3? Because I know 3/3 equals 1 whole. So there are 2 groups of 3/3 in 7/3, and I can write that as I have 2 equal groups of 3/3 within my 7/3. Now 2 times 3/3, that would be 6/3. Now we also know with 2 times 3/3 that 3/3 is 1 whole. So I know that 2 times 1 is very simply just 2. So 2 times 3/3, and then I need to ask myself, how many extra thirds do I have? So this 2 times 3/3 uses up 6 of my thirds, but I need to get to 7. So then I count up from 6 to 7, and I end up with 1/3 extra. So my final answer to this is 2 wholes and 1/3. I'm going to try this again with 12/15. I'm going to ask myself, because I know, 12/5. I know that there are 5/5 in 1 whole, so I'm asking myself, how many groups of 5/5 are in 12/5? And the answer is that there are 2 equal groups of 5/5 in 12/5. Now that ends up being 10/5 or 2 whole. And then I need to count up to see how many left are there. So if I have 10/5 and I need to get to 12/5, I'm going to count up from 10 to 12, and that leaves me with 2/5. So my final answer for this is 2 whole and 2/5, and that is the same thing as 12/5. Now, when we did this earlier with decomposition, we would decompose it as 5/5, 5/5, and 2/5. Those we would put together as 2 whole, and then we have the 2/5 left over. So you can see how what we're doing with this decomposition matches the multiplication sentence. We have 2 equal groups of 5/5, which we know is 1 whole. So 2 times 1 is 2. Now I want you to try it with 26. All right, so to check our work, I know that there are 6/6 and 1 whole, so I'm going to ask myself how many groups of 6/6 are in 26, and the answer is 3. I have 3 equal groups of 6/6, and that would be 18/6, and then I'm going to count up from 18 to 20, and that would give me 2 6 left over, so my final answer is 3 and 2 6. Now I want you to try again with 35/10. And to check your work, ask yourself how many groups of 10/10 are in 35/10, and the answer is 3. There are 3 equal groups of 10/10, and that would end up being 30/10, or 3 whole. And then I have 5/10 left over. So my final answer would be 3 and 5/10. And the last one for you to try on your own is 26/12. And to check your work, ask yourself how many groups of 12/12 are in 26/12. The answer is 2. There are 2 equal groups of 12/12 in 26/12. And that would use up 24 of my 12ths. And then I'm going to count up from 24 to 26, and that leaves me with 2 12ths extra. So my final answer is 2 whole and 2 12ths. For bonus points, you can convert this fraction into its simplest form. Thanks so much for working hard. We will continue practicing this in class tomorrow. Have a great night. I'll see you in the morning.